George Elton Mayo. Introduction. George Elton Mayo was born in Adelaide, Australia in 1880. Mayo believed that besides the formal organization, an informal organizational structure existed in a workplace. He also believed that workers were motivated by social and relational forces more than environment or financial factors. Mayo drew these conclusions through his experiments and laid the foundation for the human relations movement, and therefore he is regarded as the father of human relations movement. The major works of Elton are the first inquiry, the human problems of an industrial revolution, the social problems of an industrial civilization, and political problems of an industrial civilization. Early research of Mayo. Mayo's earliest research was at Philadelphia's mule spinning textile mill. This mill was well organized and provided all facilities to its workers. In spite of this, the mill experienced a high rate of turnover. Meaning of turnover, rate at which employees leave the workforce and have to be replaced. To prevent the high turnover, the management introduced a variety of schemes, but they all failed. So the management, as a last resort, referred the problem to Howard University. Mayo was entrusted with this work after he joined as a professor at the Howard University. This study was named the first inquiry. He discovered in the textile mill that workers suffered from foot trouble and fatigue because they had to walk more than 30 yards and attend nearly 14 machines which they had to observe closely to tie the ends of thread together whenever the thread broke. And there was a lot of noise from these machines. To reduce the workers' difficulty at the workplace, Mayo introduced rest periods of 10 minutes duration, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, of course with the permission of the management. It was observed that due to the introduction of the rest periods, the fatigue disappeared, the labor turnover almost ended, and production increased. Moreover, a social bond developed among workers because they were given a free hand in the distribution of rest periods among themselves. The Hawthorne Experiments. Mayo was successful in resolving the problem at Philadelphia's spinning mill. So he was invited by Western Electric Company's Hawthorne Works in Illinois to help the company to reduce the high turnovers, increase productivity, and to prevent the influence of trade unions. The Hawthorne Experiments were conducted in 4 phases. First one, elimination experiment 1924 to 1927 to determine the effects of different levels of elimination on workers' productivity. It is believed that physical conditions, meaning of physical conditions, sanitation, hygiene, ventilation, lighting, canteen, etc. at the workplace and productivity were directly correlated. The hypothesis was to determine the impact of elimination on productivity. For the experiment, 2 groups of 6 workers each were selected and placed in 2 separate rooms. One group was called the control group, which was exposed to constant elimination, and the other group was called the experimental group, which was exposed to varying elimination. The researchers found that regardless of the level of elimination, production in both the groups increased. Thus, it proved that elimination did not affect productivity. What increased productivity was the attention paid to the worker, which boosted his self-esteem. As a result, his productivity increased. Second one, relay assembly test room experiment 1927 to examine the effects of changes in the working condition on the worker's output. The elimination hypothesis was rejected because it did not prove any relationship between elimination and productivity. This experiment was undertaken to determine the effect of changes like wage payments, rest periods, duration of working hours, group incentive, individual piece rate, reduction of working hours, and refreshments on workers' productivity. The experiment was conducted on a group of girls who worked in the assembly of telephone relays. In this experiment, a supervisor was appointed to supervise the work. The supervisor was expected to inform the workers about the changes that were to be made with respect to wages or duration of work or rest periods, and the workers' viewpoints were taken. In spite of the various changes that were made at various intervals with respect to wages or duration of work or rest periods or refreshments, the productivity continued to be high. Then the research team decided to abolish all the privileges and return to the original condition that existed before the experiment began. The productivity did not fall in spite of the withdrawal in the privileges. Why? Because the attention they received from the research team created unit among the workers. The relation with supervisors improved because the supervisor informed the workers about the changes that they were making with respect to wages or rest periods or refreshments. The relation between workers also improved, which in turn changed the attitude of the workers towards their work and their group. The freedom to express themselves instilled responsibility and self-discipline in the group. Thus, it proved that the social and psychological factors play an important role in determining productivity. Third one, mass interviewing program 1928 to 1931 to observe the workers' attitude towards management and working conditions. The experiment was conducted to determine employees' attitude and sentiments towards the company, working conditions, supervisor, wages, promotion, treatment by management, insurance policy, etc. Workers were asked to express their opinions freely on the above factors. The opinions were collected through an interview of the workers who were asked to reply to the question in yes or no format. The responses of the workers did not help the researchers, so the interview technique was changed. Now, the interviewer explained the topic to the worker, for example, working conditions, and then took note of the worker's response with great interest. Based on the interview, no reforms were introduced, yet productivity increased. Why? It was because the workers were satisfied that they were given an opportunity to express. The workers also felt that because of the interview, the working conditions had improved. The supervisor maintained good relation with the workers because they were aware that they were being observed by the research team and that workers were allowed to express freely their opinion about the supervisor. Fourth one, bank wiring experiment 1931 to 1932 to understand the impact of a workers' social group on the individual workers' productivity. The experiment was conducted to observe the influence of group behavior on the individual's output. The experiment was conducted by observing 14 workers in a natural setting who were engaged in the assembly of terminal banks for use in telephone exchanges. The wages were paid on the basis of a group incentive plan. Each member got a share on the basis of the total output of the group. The group of workers maintained a standard of output, that is, no increase or decrease in the output. This standard plan was possible because of the informal pressure of the group on the workers. The workers were capable of increasing production, but the group maintained the planned standard output. Thus, the research team concluded that the way the workers behaved had nothing to do with management or economic conditions. It was purely the influence of group behavior and attitudes on individual workers. The conclusions of Hawthorne Experiment are as follows. First, social beings. An organization is not just an economic unit, it is also a social unit. Therefore, men are social beings or social animals. Second, supervisor. The way the supervisor behaves towards the worker has an impact on productivity. A supervisor who is friendly with workers and takes interest in their problems can secure cooperation from his workers. Third, group pressure. Group behavior and attitudes influence the productivity of workers. That is, the influence of the management is less on the workers. Fourth, not just physical or economic conditions. It is not just the working conditions, but the social and psychological factors that influence productivity. Fifth, communication. The management should communicate the reasons for taking a certain decision to the workers. At the same time, workers should be encouraged to participate in the decision-making process. If both factors are implemented, it can yield good results. Thus, management should acquire social skills and use them to secure workers' cooperation. Thus, in the words of Mayo, to understand a worker, it is necessary to unlock the psyche of the worker.